Listo. Our thanks to Asisa, who has been working with us in this process of getting the presentation ready. And thank you for the kind introduction, Asisa. Our presentation today is about obtaining your P.Eng as an international trained professional, which from now on we will call ITP. This session is based not on the requirements, and not necessarily or entirely on the requirements of provincial or federal regulators, but it's more focused on the experiences of two international educated professionals who pursued or are pursuing the professional designation. Your facilitators today will be Andrea Marciales, who you can see on the screen, and myself. You can look at our bio in the WES site and also in our LinkedIn profile. Throughout this presentation, you will get to know us a little bit better, so we will move into the session itself. The agenda today is composed of these 4 points. First, I'm going to give you an overview of some interesting stats that we have found in different sources, including Statistics Canada, Engineers Canada, APEGA, and other sources. Then Andrea is going to walk us through the requirements for APEGA as she is in the process of obtaining her professional engineering designation. We will then share our experiences and our timelines. And through this sharing of experiences, Andrea will then consolidate the information into the do's and the don'ts through the lenses of our personal stories. And at the end, we will hopefully have time for some questions. As part of this session, and in the interest of keeping you engaged, but also to collect information and compare your experiences with ours, we are going to have some polls, and that's what we call the part 1 of the surveys. As we were working on this project, we wanted to actually gather additional information, share it with provincial and federal regulators, with engineering organizations and companies as well. So hopefully, with a comprehensive survey that we are going to be putting in our online channels, we are going to be able to gather information as for international trained professionals. How do they see the process? What are the challenges that they face? And what are the things that different organizations in academia, in the regulatory environment, and also in the professional environment can do to help with this process? So with that, let's get into the information for the poll. The poll is available only during the presentation. So if you're looking at this presentation later, you will not be able to access this poll. So here's the information. Is through menti.com. The code is 4925-2160, or you can scan the QR code. While you do that, we wanted to say that we have a disclaimer, and that is that this presentation has not been endorsed by APEGA or any other provincial or federal regulator, and it only expresses the opinions and experiences of two international trained professionals applying for their professional engineering designation. So hopefully you are all there, and we will kick this off. So be ready. We will start with some questions. This is a disclaimer that I just spoke about. And the first question is, where did you complete your post-secondary education? And I know that you were already seeing it in your screens, on your phones or your computers. And thank you very much. We're seeing that we have a few people from North America, some from South America, and some others in Europe, Asia, and Africa. Good. Thank you so much. The next question, which you are already replying to, is if you're eligible to apply for your P.Eng or P.Geo, have you applied yet? And it is surprising, it is not surprising to us that only 2 out of 10 that are eligible and do not already have the P.Eng have applied. So we have 80% of people who don't apply. And this is the problem that we're trying to solve. The next question is, if you have applied, how long has the process taken so far? And we see less than 1 year, 2 of the attendees, between 1 and 2 years, 1, and between 2 and 5 years, 2. You'll be surprised that there are people who take more than 5 years, including myself. So with that, let's get into some of the stats that we promised you. So what you see on the left is the map of the distribution of the percentages of newly licensed engineers who identified as women per the 2021 report of Engineers Canada, which is a collection of the data from 2020. And in the words of the president of Engineers Canada, Danny Chui, he says over the past year, Engineers Canada 30 by 30 initiative to increase the number of newly licensed female engineers gain greater momentum. And in our 2021 National Membership Report, which as I mentioned, collects information from 2020, when you look at the members of a provincial body and the engineers in training, the overall percentage is 20.6% of newly licensed engineers identifying as female, where 20.6% of newly licensed engineers identifying as females by 2020. So he calls it, sort of speaking, 20 by 20. One other thing that we wanted to get your attention, and we will be sharing information on the comprehensive survey, is that when an organization endorses the 30 by 30 goal, they nominate a champion who actively engages in 30 by 30 work. And what we have in the presentation there is the link of the people who are close to you that could work with you if you have ideas on how to increase the percentage of newly licensed engineers identifying as females to 30% by the year 2030. We often have the question as to why is that important? And we have information over the internet, on the WES website, through presentations that have been given in the past, in past summits, that increasing the percentage of female engineers in the workplace in general, not just newly licensed engineers, ensures that there is opportunity for sustainable change, and that the more diverse a company is, the more profitable a company is. So there is a strong business case into having all genders being working in engineering, and that it is a balanced mix so that we can have better solutions that actually reflect the needs of the population. And if we look at 50% of the population in Canada being female, but only at less than 30% of the engineers who are responsible for having delivering solutions in our day-to-day life identify as females, you can expect that the solutions that are coming to the table or the ideas are very limited and they are not diverse. The next piece of stat that we wanted to share is that Canada has a plan for, I guess, filling the space, this vast space that we have, that can still have, more people living in it, with an approximate target of 300,000 immigrants per year. In 2020, and it has been increasing throughout the years, but over the past 10 or so years, and especially these are data from 2020, the number of immigrants arriving to Canada is around the 226,000. Out of those, half of that population is female. And you have to consider that a lot of the immigrants are people who are highly skilled and prepared in their countries of origin. So there is a untapped talent there that we can leverage to increase the number of female engineers. If we drill down, and this is from Stats Canada, into the female international students in engineering and engineering technology in Canada, and this spans from 2015 to 2019, we see that there is a high interest of a master's or equivalent at 51% or doctoral or equivalent at 36%. So these are people who come in here already with a bachelor or equivalent and are doing additional studies in engineering. In 2019, the total number on that pie was around 11,000 female international students that were in engineering and engineering technology in Canada. So that's a big pool that hasn't been tapped. This is all that I have for stats. And now I will turn over to Andrea, who is going to, or Andrea in Espanol, who is going to be talking to us about the requirements. Oh, I have another piece of stat. Sorry about that. This is from the APEGA 2021 annual report, and it is the percentage of the volume of P.Eng applicants that are training in Canada versus training internationally. So we have the total of, 3,300, let's say, in the past 3 years, and approximately 1,300 are international trained professionals, so 30%. But this includes male and female identifying engineers. So once again, we have numbers. We just need to increase them and gain momentum on that. With that, I'll pass it on to Andrea.
Thank you, Martha, for the kind introduction. Today, I'm going to show you very briefly about the details on the roadmap to getting your professional designation, either as an engineer or geoscientist. The first step is to verify if you're eligible. And for that, you'll have to be a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident of Canada. You should have 4 years of professional experience in total. And for one of those years, your experience should be in Canada or Canadian experience, professional experience, by the way. And also you should have your education being able to homologate, and very important, APEGA and all the other professional and regulators are very sensitive in the good standing of your character and reputation. So this is really a good requirement to have. And once you meet those lists of characteristics, then you'll have to document your case. And this step is very important because it can pretty much make or break your application. And in that documentation of your case, you have to have your education, and especially for an international trained professional, you should have your documents ready so you can apply to validate or homologate your studies in Canada. And on top of that, you have to prepare your competence-based assessment tool. And this is critical to have a successful application. Once you get your documentations ready, you can submit your application to APEGA. And what that consists of? It consists of sending your documents, paying your application fees, and start preparing for the national preparation of engineering exam, which is an ethics exam. And you have to wait for your APEGA Board of Examiners decision on your application, because it could happen that sometimes they might require you to provide more experience or more education, or they can defer your application. Many things could happen there. So it's better to wait before you present your National Professional Practice Exam, which is the next step. So in this step, what you're going to do is you present your ethics exam. That's what it really is about. And in this ethics exam, you have to be learning about what are the ethics practicing standards for engineers, bylaws, and many other aspects of the practice of engineering in Canada. Of course, you have to pass it so you can get your P.Eng, and once you are there, congratulations, you'll just have to get your stamp so you can start stamping your documents, and you have to keep developing yourself. You never stop. And so you have to keep track of your professional development hours, and that's it. If you scan through the QR codes in each of these steps, you'll find more details on each of the application phases. So I hope that's helpful to you.
Mm-hmm. In addition to that, we have put together a document that will be available after we post the presentation as well, that will have a more detailed information that Andrea put together as well. But as she mentioned, if you scan the QR codes, then you will get that information as well. So, yeah, thank you, Andrea. So next we're going to talk about our experiences. So I am going to start with mine. I called it 9 is my lucky number. I achieved my my Toastmasters, which is a designation, Distinguished Toastmaster, which is a designation for speaking in public and leadership. And it took me 9 years to get there. I married in a year that ended in 9. It took me 9 years from the time that I applied, with some hiccups and some time off, to actually obtain my professional engineering designation. And I'm pretty sure that there's something else there that rhymes with a 9 number as well. So let's start with a little bit of my story. What you see in there, and I'm going to, in the upper corner, is a snapshot of my profile in APEGA that shows that I passed some of the exams that I was assessed to take, and that I failed some others. And it was and you can see that it all starts around the 2002, and it goes up to the 2009 by the time that I actually completed or achieved or proved that I had the academic requirements that APEGA was requiring. So in 1991, I graduated with a Bachelor of Science of Civil Engineering in Venezuela. I worked for the most part for oil and gas and utility companies. One of the nicest projects that I had the opportunity to work was when I started my career. I did the conceptual engineering for a big project for extracting heavy oil out of the Orinoco Belt. Then I went into work for other companies. And then when I was already when I was a more mature engineer, I had the opportunity through another company to actually develop the detailed engineering of that project that I had worked in the conceptual engineering. And throughout the construction, I had the opportunity as well to rotate with my manager and another coworker to do troubleshooting during construction. This was a $1.3 billion project, and I was in charge of designing buildings, warehouses, the accommodations for in the construction camp, as well as foundations for electrical and mechanical equipment, and also for the design of the drainage in the different facilities, the main facilities and the pads that were outside. I migrated to Canada in 2001. I married a Canadian citizen, and we thought that we had more opportunities together to living in here. And as the second thing that I did as soon as I got here, the first one was to apply for my SIN number, social insurance number. And the second one was to register with APEGA because I was extremely interested and looking forward to being called an engineer here in Canada. Before I landed an actual technical role, I had two survivor jobs in the oil and gas. So I had two survivor jobs, sorry, and one in oil and gas. So the first one was in Fort McMurray with the Suncor at the Project Millennium plant when it was being built. And I was a data entry for absenteeism of employees or staff records, and then for welding records. Then I had a job in a call center. And that job in the call center was, I would say, very challenging because we could only go to the bathroom in the designated periods, and I just thought that that was silly, especially with the experience that I was coming from. Of course, that didn't count in that job. But there was something very interesting that I am very thankful for in that job, and that is that I was able to fine tune my listening skills. I needed to be talking to someone on the phone because it was for a credit card to ask people to apply for a credit card in the call center. And that allowed me to actually be more comfortable in speaking to people that I could not see their mouth and help myself understanding what they were saying. So then I applied for, after I registered with APEG, I applied for my P.Eng, and I passed the economics course that I was assigned at the U of A. I took the course, and then I failed the first two technical exams, as you can see in the excerpt or insert that is at the top. I did landed a job in that year with Enbridge Pipelines as a contractor, and then in 2006 as an analyst in the excavation team in pipeline integrity. And then I continued working with them, and I was made a permanent employee. Throughout that, I went from a senior engineer to team lead and to manager by the time I left Enbridge. I audited courses at the U of A to actually do better in the exams that I have failed. In the meantime, I passed one exam, and then I failed the same two exams that I had failed before, even with worse marks than before. So after I went to the university to audit the courses, I did even worse. Then finally, APEGA implemented these fundamentals of engineering exam, and that if I were to pass that, I didn't have to do these other technical exams that they had assessed. And in 2009, I passed the fundamentals of engineering exam on the first time that I applied for it, or that I took it. I had to be very diligent. I had to go to the library after work, and I spent hours there working and studying, sorry, and not go to the house, because if I were to go home, I would not, find the time to study. I got my P.Eng in 2010, got promoted to a senior engineer and then manager. And fast forward to 2022, I consider myself a person with three careers: civil engineering in Venezuela, pipeline integrity in the Suncor, with Enbridge, and then risk management with Suncor. So with that, and if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I will pass on to Andrea to talk about her experience.
Thank you, Marta. Well, I think ITP is not how it is in Canada. Well, my case is not very far away from yours in the sense of survival jobs. But I'll start with my case. I finished my bachelor in chemical engineering back home in Colombia. And I started working right away as a chemical engineer, process engineer from 2010 and 2013. And I wanted to study petroleum engineering. So it was natural to look for another country, and Canada and Alberta was one of the most suitable places to do so. I enrolled at the University of Alberta, and by 2015, I was finishing my Master's of Science in Petroleum Engineering. And I acquired my EIT status. Like you, Martha, I wanted to be able to practice engineering in Canada. And you know what happened in 2015? OpenPress crashed, and all my contacts were not responding their emails. Their email address didn't work anymore. So I was just finishing there with a petroleum engineering degree that nobody wanted. So I had to go for a survival job, and I found my work in retail and customer service. It was really tough because you come with a lot of expectations and reality hits you. The good point about that job is that I thought that I was able to speak English properly, and I discovered no, really no. And up to that, I still have to learn how to speak proper English, but at that time, that job helped me to improve a little bit of my communication skills. When I was doing the job, I found a PhD, and I wanted to come back to my career, so I did 1 year of PhD somewhere between 2016 and 2017. And it's funny because when I was doing my PhD, the job found me, or I found a job in corrosion engineering. So I got hired as a junior corrosion engineer in 2017. And by 2019, I said, okay, I want to apply for my professional designation with APPEGA. So you can see the screenshot, how long time it's taking me to do so. And I got promoted in 2020 as an intermediate corrosion engineer. And in 2021, 2 years after having my application started, APPEGA decided that they wanted to defer my case. So just imagine how happy I was at that moment. And what I was doing after that, and I've been doing recently, is further training, working towards my competency-based assessment tool. And currently I'm reapplying to get my application on track. And I'll share you very soon about what we consider you should do and you shouldn't do, so you have a successful application and you don't have to suffer or go through too much trouble like Martha and myself. Thank you.
And we're going to the next slide. And Andrea will walk us through this one.
Thank you. Here it is. Okay, the first thing is your application form. And I saw through the survey that some of you didn't apply even though you're eligible. So the first thing I want to encourage you to do today, or as soon as you see this presentation, if you were during the event also, please, please, please go and look at that application form. The reason for that is because you have to find out that you have the right, like you understand what you're supposed to be doing as an engineer, what are the competencies you have, and you can work your career towards that. And we're going to talk about the other components of that, but you have to understand what they are requiring from you very clearly and plain in those application forms. So you have the link there and you can find it very easily online. Today, please just go and do it. Go and look for that form. The second piece is education. Please make sure that your application is on track, is in place. Currently, many regulators have agreements with WES, which is the World Education Services. So you might need to homologate your degree. And don't be upset if they ask you for more studies, just is the way it is. So work on that as soon as you can at the same time with your application form. Then it comes to experience. So once you look at your application form, you can figure out with your direct supervisor, and it's better to have someone guiding you. We're talking about that later too, that you are doing the right task that you are required to do to gain your P.Eng. You don't want to wait 4 years to go to apply for your P.Eng and discover that you don't have the right experience to demonstrate that you are eligible to designation, to gain your stamp. So make sure that you have your right experience in place. And don't be cocky. I know that as an ITP, you're saying, oh, I have this experience back home. No, just have your Canadian experience as much as possible, because that's what APEGA and the other regulators in Canada care for. And then that ties back to your references. Please, please, please make sure your references are as much as possible people from Canada, supervisors or people that work with you that have professional engineering designation in Canada. Just think about it. APEGA barely knows you. APEGA is trying to trust you. They're going to evaluate if they should give you your P.Eng or not. And as reference for that, if they'll have to look for someone that they know less than you, just imagine how easy your process is going to be. So do yourself a favor and do your 4 years of experience in Canada and look for your references in Canada. Probably, Martha, you can tell about how easy it was for you to get your references back home, how fast they were to reply.
Yeah, no, it's a chasing because they don't understand the importance. It's not that way back home. It's people that I had to send them the information, the link to what they needed to do, and they took their sweet time because they did not see what the importance was. Also, these are people who may be proficient to a certain degree in English, but it's not their native language either. So that could have also been a delayed, the time in their response. So as soon as I started working in a technical job, I was not called an engineer, but I was under the supervision of somebody, and I was working with them. They were vested in yes, having another professional engineer because it's good for the company, and they knew me, uh, they cared for me, and I could bug them right there.
That's really important. Find someone you can find them in case they take longer, and they can be very easy to reach out.
Yeah.
The next step is tied to that too, and it's about your support system. Make sure that you get people that review your application before you submit it, that you have a couple of pair of eyes that come and tell you and guide you through the process for many different reasons. First, because they can make your application go easier and faster and smoother. They can clarify your doubts, and they can support you. And I'll tell you my experience. When I applied my first time, I thought that I was very capable. Honestly, I was very cocky, and I was like, well, I should be able to do this. Well, guess what? I filled out my form wrong, and that's why I'm deferred. And the other thing is, you have to ask for help. I didn't ask for help. Now I'm asking for help, and I find it in the most least expected places. So please do that. Surround yourself with people that can help you, and if not, go and find someone that can help you, because you will eventually find out someone.
Yeah.
And
Andrea, if I could add on that one, I attended recently with Claudia, a from the Association of Mechanical Engineers. We presented there. And the presenter before us was Dr. Hogan, and he was talking about the process for applying for academic jobs. And I liked and I took a lot of the things that he said in there, that this is like a full-time job and that you need people to work with you on that. So if a person has gone through that, ask them what they did and what they didn't do. If a person has submitted certain documentation, ask to look how they submitted it, how much detail, because they've done it and they've already had the job. So learn from that. And also then, as Andrea said, have them review your information so that they can, assist you in that, and hopefully your application would go better. So that, I think what he mentioned on applying for academic jobs applies in here and in anything that you don't have too much experience. Look for a support system. Yeah.
yes, and the very last one is your job assignments. Make sure that your jobs are aligned with engineering practice or are aligned with your application, even if they don't technically call you an engineer in your job, because you cannot. And one of the experience I found, which is very sad, I heard of a case that an applicant was going through his P.Eng, and then one of his reviewers decided that his job was not even engineering job after all these 4 years of working experience. So make sure as soon as you can, if you can do it from today, that your roles and activities and the projects you work in and everything you do in your career, in your job, are aligned with your professional development and are aligned towards your P.Eng application. This is a must. So don't wait for years for you to discover that you don't have the right experience and your right job assignments in your description and you cannot apply.
Yeah.
So that's about it. And I hope this helps you and hope you don't make the same mistakes that we did.
Yes. We are going to have as well with the a detailed roadmap for the requirements to apply. Also, some additional notes that you can refer to. But thank you, Andrea, for walking us through this.
Pleasure.
So our next question, which you were already answering because I had enabled it for you, is how do you relate to our experience? And some of you related very much, some somewhat, and one person did not relate at all. And then our last question for you, which you're already answering, is about the information presented today, whether you strongly agree or strongly disagree, and this is a scale as to whether you knew this before you applied, if the information will help you navigate your application process, your own application process. If you had no idea and you would like to be one of those people that support international trained professionals to actually in their application and to obtain their professional designation. And if anything that we said, you know firsthand, and there is nothing that is new for you to learn. So thank you very much for your participation. Aziz is looking to see if there are any questions in the chat, and I think there is one actually. Uh, that was for Andrea, right, part of Colombia. Thank you so much for that as well. We know now that you are engaged on this on the on the presentation. So we don't see any other questions. We'll open it to the floor to see if there's anything else, but follow us on social media and look for the comprehensive survey that we will be posting shortly after the summit. And we will be sharing the results from that survey and from the experiences with the people that we're going to share this information with, if they have any ideas on how to make the process for you an easier one. We thank you from the bottom of your hearts for attending this session, and we hope that you continue enjoying the rest of the summit.
Thank you for attending.
Bye. Let me stop the recording. Stop recording and transcription. Yes.